You probably clicked on this video because you thought I was going to explain to you the 3 best methods to enlarge your D. And even for some people, I mean, 3 different methods might even be a bit of a stretch, pun intended. I mean, everyone wants that, the best thing, the one thing that is going to get the results or their dream outcome now, the quickest, the easiest way possible. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I also want to give you the truth. Unlike most other companies that will most likely tell you what you want to hear to make it sound easier to ultimately increase conversions and sales. And once they have your money and you've spent all that time, they don't really care, okay? I'd rather give you a different point of view and rather the truth and transparency that you need, whether it's going to deter you from this goal and journey altogether, or actually save you a lot of time, headache, money, and more. Now, instead of actually explaining the 3 best methods, I'm gonna give you something a heck of a lot more valuable. And it is essentially the principle to P that's going to allow you to get the results.
Just FYI, my daughter had a field day with my toenails and fingernails with some blue nail polish. She was pretty upset at the notion of me taking it off, so I had to leave it on for another day.
Actually make results possible at all. Now with that principle, it breaks down into 2 primary actions. You can almost call them steps, in other words. So you take step 1, you take step 2, and you repeat the process. Step 1, step 2, step 1, step 2, while following the overarching rule that makes PE possible, and I will guarantee that you get results. If you don't, I will be extremely surprised. Very, very surprised. In fact, if you don't get results, come back to this video, smash that dislike button, not only once, but really give it to me and smash it twice. But honestly, I will be super, super surprised. Now, with that, all right, so you've got the overarching principle that makes PE possible. Then you've got the 2 primary actions. And then when you decide on what methods you want to use, there are 3 different core variables that each and every method, no matter what it is, has for you to take into consideration. Now at this point, you probably got a lot more detail, a lot more nuances, a lot more to think about than just 3 different methods that you thought you were going to get when you started this video. Now, some people may have already clicked off. Some people are gonna click off very soon. And look, I wanna be honest with you. If you can't make it through this video, that is literally going to give you the most truth and transparency about this goal, I'm telling you now, probably save yourself time, money, and all the headaches that could come with not knowing this information, and just don't do the journey. Okay, this is also coming from someone, disclaimer, I built a brand, including a product line, all to do with enlarging your Johnson, plus everything else that comes with bedroom performance, including bedroom chemistry, relationship dynamics, and hardness, stamina, and yes, size. Now, this isn't necessarily the best way to go about conversions and sales, all right? The truth and transparency, usually marketing is hit the pain point, sell them what they think they need. Now, while I've even got the tools, that you probably think you need, I'm also going to give you what you probably don't want to hear at the same time. But with that understanding, while it's going to take a lot more effort and time to understand now, I'm going to save you a heck of a lot of time and effort in the long run. Now with these videos, there are 3 very common questions that I'm sure is on most people's mind. Is this a scam? If it's not, what are the results that I could gain and how long is it going to take? This is not a scam. Enlargement is very, very possible. And if anything, the marketing done, right? The marketing done by most companies in this industry is borderline scam, if not a straight up scam. See, the tools themselves can be used. Technically, you could get results with most methods and most devices out there. There are definitely some that just should not be sold at all, but it is usually the marketing that is more or less the scam. Over promising, under delivering. Saying you can get 2 to 3 inches in 2 to 3 months is an absolute joke. Like I said before, sometimes truth and transparency does not equate to sales. So a lot of this industry is not going to give you honesty and transparency. So just something to be wary of. This is not a scam. Enlarging the D is possible, but it is going to take a lot more effort and time that you've probably been led to believe by most of the industry, if not a lot of the information out there. Usually if it has a bias to do with sales and money, obviously. What kind of results can you achieve? I would usually say, it is safe to say, I'm gonna give you the time and the results in one hit. It is estimate. Everyone wants like a conclusive answer, like 2 inches in, 6 months. If that was the case, that would be freaking awesome. I honestly wish that was the case, but again, it is totally not. I'll give you my results and then I'll explain what I think is possible if you were to have a very holistic understanding of this entire endeavor. Now, I gained majority of my results within a 3-year time span, even though the very first time I touched a device with potential intent to grow a little bit more than I had was probably 15 years. But because of the lack of information, the lack of knowledge that I had, even the misleading information out there, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I just did not get results. But I was attempting, then giving up, attempting, then giving up. It wasn't a consistent effort of 15 years. The actual results that I got was probably within a 3-year time span, and that was from 16 centimeters in bone pressed erect length all the way to 20.5 centimeters in bone pressed erect length. Girth, I went from 14.5 centimeters circumference near the base all the way to 16.5 centimeters. Now, what do I think is possible? I think it would be pretty safe to say on average 30%. All right, so whatever your size is now, it is a percentage. It's never really going to be a 1 or 2 or 3 inches because it really depends on the amount of tissue that you have. The more you have, the more you can gain. It's unfortunately just the way that it is. So whatever your size is now, you could essentially just multiply that by 1.3 and you can get your size both in length or girth. No matter what measurement it is, just do that maths and you should be able to get a pretty close figure. Now again, there are so many different variables that you need to consider, and just think about how long 1 to 2 years is. Anything can happen, right? And there are so many different variables, like things that will get in the way, time and privacy, alterations to your time and privacy in life. You know, a lot can go on. Just like going to the gym, you might even slack off for a few months, go back, go forward. There's a lot of ebbing and flowing, so you just have to keep that in consideration. However, if you stuck to it consistently, took all the knowledge that I would like to provide you, not only in this video, but all the videos that I even provide for free on totalmanperformance.com, and even a PE video course, by the way. If you were able to take that, you could get that 30% in 2 years, maybe even less, but I do want to stay on the safer and more realistic side, okay? Essentially, I don't want to seduce you or coerce you into something that is not going to be realistic. So with that out of the way, I'm going to explain the core principle, the 2 primary actions, and then the 3 variables that will help you consider and choose the methods that are going to best suit you. Again, there is no perfect plan. The perfect plan is the one that you stick to, the one that you can stay consistent to. These answers are not pretty, they're not glamorous. It's ultimately pretty boring. All right, but boring gets you the results. Now, instead of the 3 best methods, I'm going to explain all of this in 3 different camps of people that is going to be considered, I guess, mainly through budget. All right, starting off with completely free and seeing what that looks like and how you would go about using the core principle, the 2 actions, and the 3 variables. All right, and then if you've got a little bit more budget, and then ultimately there's no budget. At the same time, I also want to explain, I'm not going to be talking about anything to do with procedures or surgeries, so that is off the table. I'm not saying it's not an option for you. I'm just saying that what I'm explaining in this video is more or less like training at the gym. Like, you're actually going to, get the methods that you think will suit you best and actually use them on a consistent basis to see results. So let's go over the core principle. Now, I love to use gym as an analogy because I hope most people train and they understand this principle through training, and the same is going to be for training to enlarge your D. Now, if you were to go into the gym, everyone knows consistency is key to the gym. But if you were to go in day 1 of a week where you were going to hit the gym 5 days out of that week and you ran yourself to failure, absolute failure, to the point you most likely felt like you couldn't get up in the morning. Now, that previous day's workout is now going to impede your efforts on the next day. So what do? Well, with gym, you could potentially split up the muscle groups so you're actually hitting different areas, so that if one muscle group is sore, you can hit another. Now, this may not be the case with your lad because you're essentially stretching majority of the same tissues day in, day out on the consistent time frame. So you need to approach it in a very different way, and that is through progressive overload, only ever increasing the time and intensity slowly over time. The same can be said for the gym. You could even hit the gym and all the same muscles each and every day, but if done in a specific way, you could achieve consistent results so that the workout on one day does not impede the next. It may, but you want to do it in a way where your body is healing adequately enough so that by the time you get to the next workout, you're actually not digressing. Instead, you're progressing. Now, the same can be said for the tissues and enlarging your D. This is where tracking will be absolutely imperative to make sure that the volume that is accumulated, no matter what method that you use, is always going to stay within this core principle of progressive overload. So nice and steady. Time and intensity multiplied together will give you the volume. That volume needs to be on a consistent incline. Not too much, not too little. So enough so you get results, not too much that you actually stress the tissues to a point that causes what is considered a protective reaction, and I will get into what that is in a second. Now, using this core principle of progressive overload, this now then drops down into two primary actions. Like I said earlier in the video, you need to follow one, then the other, and repeat. So step one, step two, step one, step two. And that is simply causing enough stress, what is considered a hormetic stress. So enough stress that is enough to manipulate the tissues to force them to grow, but not too much to cause what is a protective reaction. Now, we've got this particular tissue within what makes up all of the penile tissues called fascia, and it works very much the same as it does when you go to the gym and you stress the muscles. The fascia is responsible, one of many responsibilities, of protecting the other tissues. And it does this by loosening and contracting, or in other words, softening and hardening. Now, when you go to the gym and you smash the muscles, the following day you probably feel tight, all right? The muscles themselves are going to be tight. They've gone through stress. They've gone under micro tears, but the fascia itself is also responsible for that tightness. And what it's going to do is harden and contract around the muscle to make sure that it does not incur any further damage. Because if the muscles incur damage and you need to be in a situation where you need to fight or flee or freeze, and those muscles are impeded, your survival is at stake. So the body is going to do something pretty cool. It's going to protect those muscles from incurring any further damage and even impede your movement so you can't cause even more damage. Now, the same thing actually happens with the penile tissues. Now, a symptom of this, just to paint a better picture for anyone that's actually experienced this in the past, sometimes if you push the muscles too far, you will get what is considered a turtling effect. If you thought your flaccid was small now, just wait until you push the tissues a little too much and they tighten, as in they go through what I said, a protective reaction. They will almost tighten up and make it seem like your flaccid is even smaller because the fascia is trying to protect the damage that was incurred. So that's an important note, because while using progressive overload, you're able to avoid that. You're going to do, again, enough so that you actually cause enough stress to make change, but at the same time, not too much that you go into that protective reaction. Because I'm telling you now, the fascia is a lot stronger than people think. It is said that it can have the same tensile strength as steel per its weight. That's pretty intense. So if you cause a protective reaction, you're essentially working up against steel. And let me tell you, I've done this many times before without knowing it and only looking back in hindsight, and then I can work out, wow, that's what was actually happening. I've progressed way too quick to the point where, I was using pretty substantial weight using different intense traction methods of a weight that you would think would be really getting you results and even not causing any injury, but it was just amazing to see how much the penile tissues could tolerate without even getting to what is considered fatigue, something that we're actually aiming to achieve so that we know we're achieving enough intensity. Okay, so action number one, you could call stretch. And it doesn't really matter which method you use, whether manual methods, traction methods, pressure-centric methods like pumping or even vacuum chambers to do with traction as well. Let's just call this step stretch, all right? It's the step that you are trying to incur enough intensity to cause change. But again, not too much to cause that protective reaction. And then that leads us to step number two, which is hold. Okay, this is imperative, and it's why it comes in a two-step process that needs to be repeated. When the tissues are stressed, ultimately your penis doesn't necessarily want to grow. It's fine the way that it is. Your body doesn't really care. What cares is you want to increase the size. So we need to manipulate the tissues in a way almost to coerce them into our ultimate goal, which is growth. Otherwise, they will take whatever opportunity that they have to stay the same, to stay in a safe position, even if that means tightening up the tissues so that you can't go anywhere. Now, how do we actually avoid this and how do we get around this? So if you just use step one, right? I've definitely heard of people getting results just using, let's say, stretching or intense methods only and not even including step two in their regime, and that's totally fine. But what I've found that has personally helped me substantially is definitely including this step two, and it is what is considered holding. Once you stretch the tissues, manipulate them, force them to grow, then we need to hold. We need to use specific methods that's going to enable us to hold the newly stretched tissues in their new, larger size. Now, I'll explain what those methods are again when I break down the different camps of people. All right, so step one, step two, repeat. In other words, stretch, hold, stretch, hold, and you're going to do that on a consistent basis. Now in come the three variables that are to be considered with any method that you are going to choose that are again going to suit your life and circumstances. And they are intensity, mobility, and discretion. Now you need all three at high levels to accommodate for the two actions, stretch, hold, to ultimately achieve progressive overload. All right, slowly increasing time and intensity. Now, you'll find that not all methods, probably not even one method in particular, is going to give you all three variables of mobility, intensity, and discretion at high levels, but you need them at high levels. This is where more tools equals more flexibility to suit, again, your lifestyle and circumstances or your time and privacy needs. So more tools equals more flexibility is essentially our motto. So once I break down these variables, then I'll go into the three different camps of people, and it's all going to help all of this make sense. You need all of this context, including the core principle, the two actions, and now the three variables. So why do you need mobility? It's really going to depend, again, on your lifestyle and circumstance, but you may want to use a method or device where you can be doing something while stretching, while growing. Your ability to move around, for example, you could be under, let's say, using a traction device, you could be under traction, growing, or trying to execute step one or step two while using a device and moving around, let's say, maybe a compression extender while you're at home, cooking, cleaning, doing work. So mobility is your ability to move around while executing the method, trying to follow step one or step two. Now, intensity is essentially any method or device's safe working capacity. So one device might be only safe even with conditioning, meaning you're conditioning the tissues to tolerate the external and internal stress caused on all of the tissues, including the skin, all the way down to the fascia and other tissues. You need to consider the device and its ability to increase in intensity. For example, a compression hanger, which is a compressive device that clamps on behind the tissues of the glands, I would personally say that I could go up to 8 kilos. Really, you want to try keep all weight, all intensity as low as possible and extend as much time as possible before increasing intensity. But some tools, if you need the intensity, some tools are better equipped to more comfortably and efficiently use more intensity, especially when you get further down and progress further with PE. There is what is considered cycles, and you will eventually need to take a break to decondition the tissues, to essentially allow them to soften and relax, to make lower intensity just as effective as when you started. So the tissues will keep adjusting to the new intensity that you provide, again, almost like a protective reaction, but you need to just stay ahead, which is why progressive overload is the core principle. Now, it's going to get to a point where you just max out the device or the method's safe working capacity, and it's just going to start feeling uncomfortable, and honestly, it's going to get more risky than it is worth. and that's where the deconditioning break is going to come into. So intensity needs to be considered for all the methods that you use. Some will be really suited to lower intensities. Some will give you the capacity to work at a lot higher intensities. One of the most intense methods that you can use is compression hanging. But just because I said that, it does not mean you need to use a crazy amount of weight. And the last one is discretion. This is really important, especially when it comes to holding. Now, this is going to take a lot more time and effort than I think most people believe. So when it comes to holding, you really want to do this in a very passive way that doesn't feel like it's taking up all your time and effort. Now, I'll just give you one tool, for example. It is called the all-day vacuum stretcher. It allows you to stay under traction at very low intensity, all while staying pretty discreet. You could literally go out in public. If fitted correctly and it is comfortable for you to wear at low intensity, no one would even know that you've got it on. And that is a perfect way to hold the tissues once they've been adequately stretched, step one, to force that growth. All right, once you force the tissues to this new size, even if it's on a microscopic level, we then want to hold it as long as possible until the tissues become acclimated, until they technically go through almost like a healing phase. And then we go back to step one, stretch the tissues that just got used to that new size. All right, so if you've made it this far, I want to congratulate you. Well done. You have probably made it past 95% or more of people. I mean, by now, a lot of people have already clicked off. And that really shows me that you do want to do this properly, and I applaud you for that. And I'm telling you right now, you are saving yourself a tremendous amount of time and effort and money and headaches, just everything. Again, this whole brand, all the content, all the products, I essentially built as something that I wish I had when I began. So I'm glad you're taking this in, and I really do hope you get the results that you are after. So the three camps of people, I'm gonna start off with, if you've got no budget at all, you just wanna do this for free, you don't even wanna spend any money at all. Do I think it's possible? 100%. Now, really, you've only got a number of options. Quite a large number of options, but it is going to come down to just manual methods. The amount of manual methods is kind of like the amount of calisthenics exercises without bars, rings, and all that. So essentially, how many bodyweight exercises are there? I mean, almost the same can be said for manual methods when it comes to stretching. You've still got manual traction methods, and you've still got manual pressure methods like squeezing, Yuli's, a bunch. And you can even find all of these as uncensored content, me showing you exactly how to do everything in my personal way on totalmanperformance.com. Now, while I think it is possible to get results with manual methods, I personally think it's going to take a lot more effort, because manual methods take all of your time and effort. All right, so it's not as passive as, let's say, devices could be. With devices, you attach, adjust, detach, and the time that you are connected and under traction or pressure, I mean, really, you could do whatever you can do with that particular device. Take compression hanging, for example. If you are standing up, compression hanging with a weight hanging down, I mean, if you got a stand-up desk, you can do that. You can watch a movie. I mean, there's specific tools like pulley system, so you could sit at your desk and stretch, and while you work, again, watch a movie, do whatever. Other methods, like the one I spoke about earlier, all-day vacuum stretching. You could just about do anything that you wanted to do while holding. Again, it is low intensity, so it needs to be accommodated for if you need to go back to step one, it's not the device for that. If it's for holding, the perfect device, and for you to get back to your life. At the same time, it is going to be a device that needs to be, I guess, at a subconscious, somewhat conscious level. You always need to check in to make sure that it is still feeling all right. There are definitely scenarios you'll get into where you need to be able to, sink into the tissues to make sure they're not under too much stress, because you could injure yourself or incur minor injuries. Now, some of you might be thinking that you can't achieve step two, and it is somewhat the case, but here is the way you could potentially get around it with, a budget of free. You don't want to spend anything. I do think it's possible. It's not the best. I don't think it's going to lead to the best results in the shortest amount of time, but again, it is possible. I just want to address everyone no matter where you are in your journey. Now, you could go for step one by actually doing the manual methods, whatever they are, and track your progress, track the time and intensity. The intensity, unlike devices where you could, hang a certain weight, use a specific amount of traction that can be measured, this is where manual methods kind of gets a little more risky, a little more dangerous, because it's a lot harder to track. How are you supposed to estimate how hard you are pulling for a very inconsistent amount of time? Your strength, your intensity may adjust every second. All right, so it's literally going to be a ballpark, but again, not completely impossible. So you really need to estimate intensity, whether it's the equivalent of kilos. I'm not sure you're going to track that, or maybe you can just do an intensity scale. 1 is like you just feel it, 10 is you're maxing out the tissues, and you multiply, let's say, the unit or the standard of measure of intensity by the time. So today I stretched straight out at an intensity of 4 for, let's say, 20 minutes, okay? Just an example. Now, how do you go to step 2? You essentially just want to remind the tissues on a as consistent basis as you can throughout the day to stay where they were at the size that they were newly manipulated to. So you might even get to this every time you go to the toilet, just to do a really, really quick set. Now, while it won't be passively holding the whole time that you're not actually putting it under traction, you're essentially just, giving it intermittent reminders. All right, stay at that new length or size, stay at that new length or size. Again, not the best, but it is the best alternative in my opinion. Next is someone with, let's call it a starting budget. You just want to get into this. You want to see how it feels. You don't want to drop a bunch of coin on this only to think that you've wasted money because you're just not feeling it. People change their mind, and that's totally fair enough. You might even go through an emotional roller coaster and think, heck, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't work in my current relationship right now. And you don't want to just drop a bunch of coin to realize or think you've wasted that money altogether. And this might be your way of just dipping your toe in the water and seeing what it feels like, seeing how it goes. And what do I recommend for that? No matter where you are or what kind of life circumstance you have, there are 2 primary tools that I would most likely recommend to almost everyone. So whether you work at home, best scenario really, if you've got a 9-to-5 office job, if you're a tradie, I would recommend trying to carve out as much time as possible, but it also works with as minimal time possible with these tools, because this is what I consider the 2 king methods for step 1 and step 2. The first is the compression hanger. A lot of people think that this is a very advanced exercise, but a lot of people also think that deadlifts are an advanced exercise. You most likely do a deadlift every single day of your life to pick up something off the floor or something similar, okay? Just because deadlifts are associated with doing crazy heavy lifts, it does not mean you need to use a crazy amount of weight. The same goes for compression hanging. You can attach it in a way that is super comfortable. The device has the capability and the comfort, usually fitted correctly, to hang very heavy weight, which means if it is used, again, correctly, hanging a lot lower weight is definitely going to be comfortable, or at least that's what you're going to be able to achieve. So because it can handle heavy weights, it doesn't mean you have to, but again, you can use that for step 1, all right? King of tools, and it definitely means you've got a lot more leeway if you end up using more intensity later on down the track. Step number 2 is, like I mentioned earlier, the all-day vacuum stretcher. And when it comes to step 2, which is holding. Now with compression hanging, you could easily do a set that manipulates the tissues enough to force growth that could literally range from anywhere from 1 set to 3 sets, more if you've got the time. But let's just say you're a tradie, you get up, you've got very minimal time. All right, you can do 1 set, 20 minutes. Make sure you warm up properly. More details in the video course at totalmanperformance.com. Please follow that if you really want to take this seriously. This is just an intro. Everyone's like, what? This is an intro? Yes, it is an intro, a lot more detail. So if you want to take it seriously, please invest your time and effort into that course even before you buy anything from me, please. If you can't get through that, don't buy anything from me. Don't pursue this journey. Now, the all-day vacuum stretcher will give you the ability to discreetly, at low intensity, stretch and hold those newly stretched tissues. So it's just gonna hold it in place, low enough intensity so that it's essentially reminding the tissues on a very consistent basis. All right, so essentially every second that you've got the device on to stay put. Stay put in a way that it gives the body the ability to heal so that by the time you get back to step 1, forcing even more growth, they're ready to go again. Now, I would recommend those 2 tools again to most people. Now, you could definitely get away with both of those tools for less than $200. Again, I would say that those are the 2 primary tools that you can use. Now, if you go through all of this video and you realize that maybe those aren't the tools for your certain situation and circumstance or your time and privacy needs, and you choose other tools, again, using the core principle, the 2 actions and the 3 variables, awesome. That's essentially what I want you to get from this video, to be able to use all that and to choose what you think is going to best work for you. Again, the best routine or the regime is the one that you can stick to and stay consistent with. Now let's move on to the third camp. You've essentially got no budget. You can spend whatever you want. Really, I mean, this is ultimately, to look at it in another way, imagine having only few exercises to choose from trying to build your muscles. Let's say if you want to do bodybuilding or build muscle. Let's say if you wanted to do bodybuilding. And this is where I come back to my motto, is the more tools equals the more flexibility. And the more tools you have means you could have a tool for every situation and circumstance. You might need a tool for more intensity where you're actually completely stationary. There is a tool for that. You might need a tool where you need that intensity still, but you still want to walk around your house to do other things. There is a different tool for that. You might have a scenario where you can wear pants, but you need to be in public and have low intensity to complete or action step 2 and just hold the tissues. There is a tool for that. You might want to wear shorts, and that tool, that let's say the all-day vacuum stretcher, to hold discreetly at low tension might not be suitable because usually it's attached with a leg band. And if you want to wear shorts, well, there is a different tool for you to passively heal in a different way. So really, it's going to come down to your preferences, your interests, your lifestyle as a whole. But ultimately, again, the more tools you have, the more flexibility you have, and the less chance you have of saying, I can't stay in attraction, or I can't complete step 1 or step 2 because of this situation that I'm in. You know, I'm going out to the office, I'm going to have a workout. This day just doesn't allow the time or the privacy that I need. Well, the more tools that you have, you'll be able to step past those excuses or those obstacles. And then there are also even more tools to, let's call it, speed up the process or ensure that you are staying as safe as possible. It may make your efforts even more effective. There's vibration tools, there's heat pads, there's infrared light therapy pads, all of which act in certain ways to help the process, whether it's through healing, whether it's through relaxing the tissues even more to make manipulation even more effective. All right, there are plenty of options, but I just wanted to lay everything out in this particular way so you could see what is possible, to see what was necessary, and to also see what other options that there are. Now, I know this video is going quite long, but I just wanted to lay it out to cover all camps of people. I don't want you to think that just because you don't have a budget or you don't want to spend any money that you can't get results. It is possible. I will say that. I personally probably wouldn't have gotten results because I just didn't want to spend that amount of time and effort on this kind of goal, which is why I ended up, going down and using devices and ultimately even creating a brand. What started off very organically, just creating content because I knew people were out there that were struggling to get results, and I guess we were being misled. I knew they were being misled because I was being misled, and what took me a very substantial amount of time relative to what it should have taken me, I just wanted to create content to help other guys to hopefully speed up their journey and to save them the time, headache, money, effort, everything. And so it's why I still create the content like this today. But it is also why I started creating products, because what started off as content, guys were coming back to me saying, I like this device, but I prefer it to be this way, or I wish it was like that. And I was in the same boat. All right, so this started very organically. I essentially created a product line that I wanted for myself, tools and devices that would allow me to get the results that I wanted and ultimately get the results that other guys wanted as well. Now, for a much further in-depth breakdown, step by step every week, if you were to invest 30 minutes a day consuming the content, not even sped up by the way, 30 minutes a day every week for 4 weeks, you'll get everything inside the video course. Plus there's an entire video library of different manual methods, tutorials for all the devices that we sell. I mean, this whole video is not to push you to buy our products or to spend money with us. If you learn what you need to learn, the principles, the actions, the variables, and everything else that will allow you to get the results in the best way possible and the safest way possible, please keep safe. Do not break your D. You've got one. And all that maybe means that you go somewhere else and you buy those devices or those tools from someone else and a different brand. Totally fine. I don't mind. But this content is here to save you all of that headache, and our tools and devices are there as an option if you want to choose our brand. So again, for all content, including the video course, check out totalmanperformance.com. For all our products with money back guarantees, check out totalmanshop.com. I wish you all the best. Please stay safe, don't break your D, be the man you know you can be. I'll see you in the next video.